So welcome everyone to my short lecture. Thank you, Mattia, for a nice introduction about my background. And this is my presentation online outline. So first, I will provide the overview of sustainable development concept and education for sustainable development, although I assume that many of you have these insights. And then I will provide a few examples how to integrate education for sustainable development into our teaching. I will present the handbook we published. It's a handbook for teachers in primary, secondary schools and everyone interested in educating for sustainable development. But I will also show few courses we teach at the University of Zagreb and how we implement this education into our teaching. So we all know that a fundamental challenge to the realization of sustainable development is actually the unequal and unfair distribution of natural and life resources. So I think that we can all agree that we cannot focus on protecting the environment as long as the majority of humanity lives in poverty and a small minority enjoys some kind of abundance. If you look at this data from 2017, you can see the huge disparities and polarization between African countries which have the embarrassing levels of infant mortality, of life expectancy, of years of schooling and average income compared to the rest of the world, especially countries that are considered healthy and influential. So now it's 2024. I guess these relations even changed more. The concept of sustainable development actually dates back to the 17th and 18th centuries in Europe and has its roots in sustainable forest management. Back then, people actually depleted wood resources because they believed they were inexhaustible and were not motivated to reforest them because they knew they wouldn't profit from them during their lifetime. And what was the consequence? The consequence was the overuse of wood, of timber, and deforestation for agricultural and land use. And it drastically changed the landscapes, and vast areas were left barren. So there was a conclusion that foresters then concluded that and actually highlighted that forests need time and conditions to recover, but natural regeneration is not always enough. Reforestation is necessary to restore wood stock and enable the sustainability of wood resources. So we cannot only rely on natural regeneration of natural resources. The term sustainable development in its modern context was first mentioned in the Club of Rome report in 1972. The limits to growth. This is something you might have read already. And the report analyzed the possible consequences of rapid economic and population growth in the face of limited natural resources. The main aim of this report was to understand the limits of the global system, which is characterized by population, human needs, and activities. In this report from 1972, this report actually modeled that between the 70s and 2000s, the world population, so the black line, per capita food production pollution, industrial production, and ecosystem services would increase, but lead to a depletion of natural resources, which is this purple line here. It was predicted that by 2030, all of these factors would experience a drastic decline. So you can see the declining levels of all these sources. And it makes clear actually that the depletion of natural resources would severely affect all aspects of human life, which are crucial to the sustainability of humankind. The solid lines in the graph actually represent how closely the real data matches these predictions from 1970s. And then in this report, it was emphasized that immediate action is needed to prevent this scenario to happen after 2030. It was during this time that actually the concept of sustainable development was emerged actually. And there was a proposition to move away from continuing economic growth towards a balanced approach that prioritizes long-term well-being and global sustainability. So the conclusion of this report was that redefining our priorities for common good is a legitimate and necessary step toward achieving true sustainability for all generations that will appear. So this is how we arrived to the modern understanding of sustainable development concept and its definitions, which are diverse, but at their core, they emphasize the same principles, linking social, environmental, and economic needs and issues. It is important to emphasize that sustainable development is primarily a principle for organizing economic growth, while also taking into account the preservation of natural ecosystems and ecosystem services, which is really important to understand this syntagm. Ecosystem services are actually benefits that humans receive from natural ecosystems for free. And that it includes clean air and water, pollination of crops, climate regulation, and recreational opportunities. So this is all that we get from the nature, from the natural resources, and we take it for granted, as Professor already emphasized in his interview. It is thus important to understand that sustainable development is not only focused on environmental, but also on social and economic domain. And in some newer version of demystifying the sustainable development concept, there are talks about including political and cultural domains in this graph as well. In addition to establishing the sustainable development domains, there was a long journey to formulate the 17 sustainable development goals, well known as SDGs, which we aim to achieve by 2030. Following the introduction of these goals by the UN in 2015 as part of the Agenda for Sustainable Development. We are now currently in the decade of action, striving to meet these ambitious targets, I would say. And while the future beyond 2030 remains uncertain, it is likely that a new set of goals with a fresh deadline will emerge at some point in 2030. And now there is a question, how all this can be integrated into schools and teaching at primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. So education should equip young people to thrive in this uncertain future, preparing them with skills and adaptability to navigate a world we cannot fully predict. And actually, UNESCO contributed by defining specific concepts to facilitate teaching about sustainability. And I'm sure that many of you already include these topics into your teaching. Also, UNESCO shaped a list of key competencies and core skills for education for sustainable development. And these are the 4 pillars of 21st century education. So it's learning to know. So learning how to learn, it includes also creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, interdisciplinary endeavors, and managing complexity. So we should teach our students how to think critically and try to solve problems. Then learning to do. So not only making theories, but also applying knowledge in real world situations and decision making and facing challenges. Then another pillar is learning to be. So which is supported by effective communication, asking students to self-express them for self-expression, stress management, developing personal values and attitudes. This is really important for young people to soak in during their lifetime. And of course, as mentioned in the previous talk, learning to live and work together, not working against each other, but working together. So respecting others, teamwork, thinking globally and acting locally. This is a famous phrase. Learning how to negotiate, how to network, learning about democracy and deep democracy, democratic decision-making, and so on. Since competencies we just mentioned encompass a combination of cognitive and metacognitive skills, knowledge, understanding, interpersonal and practical abilities, as well as ethical values, it is essential to implement target teaching strategies to get them. This is what lifelong learning is about. So to get the lasting knowledge and understanding in students, as well as foster attitudes and values that support the goals of sustainable development. And some main strategy how to acquire all these is active learning. So learning by doing, not only ex cathedra teaching and gathering facts and information from some central person called teacher. So including students in your teaching activities. In Croatia, sustainable development was integrated into formal education as a mandatory cross-curricular topic in the national curriculum in 2019. So it's quite fresh. This curriculum for sustainable development in Croatia was based on the principles of the UN Framework for Education for Sustainable Development. Following this background and historical events that brought education for sustainable development in Croatian schools, we have seen, my co-authors and I, the need to shape a handbook which would provide a decent base for constructing the education for sustainable development in Croatian schools, primarily at the primary and secondary education levels. This handbook is published in Croatian. Maybe some of you might use it and understand it. It is designed for teachers, education students. So we use it for our students at the faculty, so future teachers of STEM subjects, as well as anyone interested in contributing to the preparation of young people for sustainable development. This is the content overview. So first we provide a little bit of history about sustainable development, then the introduction of sustainable development in our national curriculum. Then we describe competencies for sustainable development. And the main part, I would say, is describing, offering teaching strategies and learning activities for developing competencies in sustainable development. Also, we provide some interesting examples of projects from teaching practice, and then we provide notes and suggestions for further reading. Active teaching strategies described in this handbook are listed here. So from experiential learning to case study analysis, shaping student portfolios, and all these active teaching strategies are described in detail. And we also group learning activities as activities for building community and comfort, for establishing some rules and communication norms. We also provide learning activities for developing critical, analytical, and system thinking, and so on and so forth. And then we list how to do all these individual activities in detail. It's all described in this handbook. So it might serve as an inspiration for some teachers how to conduct some of these active learning learning activities in your teaching. How it looks, this is just a activity description, one of the activity descriptions. So there is one activity entitled, "Where do I stand?" And in the book, in the handbook, we always have these categories. So we list the activity goal. We provide a detailed description for teachers, so clear step-by-step instructions on how to guide students through this activity and how to facilitate the sessions with students. Then we provide the written instructions for students. So the instructions, concise sets of instructions that you can give to your students, and then students can easily follow to participate in the activity. And then we provide some examples, some specific scenarios to help illustrate the activity and guide student responses. We also offer and suggest the student age, so the educational cycle, we call it in our national curriculum, for which educational level the activity suits, the duration of activity, and of course we suggest a way how to reflect on the activity, how to ask students to provide their feedback on what they learned from the activity. This is how it looks in the handbook. And besides activities, we also provide examples of projects from teaching practice. So there are described projects from very successful projects from our primary and secondary schools, where teachers and their students conducted certain actions at the level of their schools, how they actually implemented education for sustainable development, and also included local community, entire school, and entire local community. So it was project Say No to Plastic Bags, Healthy Apples for a Healthier School, Enhancing Quality of Life at School, And then there are 2 student research projects, physical-chemical analysis and microplastic assessment in the Sava River, and the research project carbon dioxide storage capacity of a laurel tree. These were really nicely shaped student research projects, which we really are glad to include into this handbook as an example. Now I will provide some examples of how education for sustainable development can be implemented at the tertiary level of education. So with in the handbook I just presented, it's mostly activities for primary and secondary school students, but here are some examples for the faculty level, for example. This is the description of learning outcomes of the course Sustainable Development in Teaching Natural Sciences. It's an elective course at our faculty, and it's offered to students of integrated undergraduate and graduate program biology and chemistry education. And if you only look at the keywords in the learning outcomes, it is obvious that this course covers different aspects of sustainable development, and it also offers many activities for our students where they can learn how to incorporate all this into their teaching once they will be teachers. So the Sustainable Development in Teaching Natural Sciences includes 20 hours of fieldwork and exercises, as well the individual learning linked to the content of the GLOBE program. I'm not sure how many of you have already met with this program. It is the Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment program, which is sponsored by NASA. And it is actually a global program that brings students, teachers, scientists, and citizens together to promote science and learning about the environment. Last year, or was it 2 years ago, I was in Omiš in Croatia, where we had the international GLOBE meeting. And I remember that I met some teachers from Slovenia who were just introducing the GLOBE program into their schools. So I know that there is interested community in Slovenia that are keen to introduce this program into their teaching. Prior to this fieldwork, students are required to study the e-learning GLOBE module, which is available on GLOBE program sites, and they have to take the associated e-learning exam. In the field, students perform the biometry, land cover, atmosphere, and hydrosphere GLOBE protocols. These are official GLOBE protocols developed by GLOBE team, so the US GLOBE team, and it includes different science branches, so it's completely interdisciplinary. And this is how our students work in the field during these field exercises. After the field visit, students perform data entry into the global GLOBE database. They conduct statistical data analysis and discuss the relevance of data for sustainable development goals and for a cross-curricular topic, sustainable development, which is in our national curriculum. All these protocols and GLOBE platform for entering the data are available on the actually NASA platform, and it's global and it's open source database, and all schools who are GLOBE schools and who collect their data, they enter their measurements into this base. These measurements are then checked by experts, and then this database can be used for a vast number of research projects, long-term tracking of environmental parameters, and so on. So we find it very useful and interesting. Since all students solved the GLOBE e-learning exams, they received official GLOBE certificates and achieved the status of pre-service GLOBE teachers. And this is something that benefits our students because they can bring these certificates into the schools when they want to get hired by some school. If they have the teacher certification for a GLOBE program, they can proclaim their school as a GLOBE school, and they can continue working within this program with their school. Of course, if the school principal agrees. After conducting this course with our students, we conducted a survey among the students, asking them what are the advantages of this way of teaching and learning, and we asked them to tell us what are the advantages for students, for teachers, and for school community. And this is what we gained as some results with just one generation of students. So our students think that students get a sense of experiential learning and learning by discovery through out of the classroom teaching, which they like. And if they like it, I'm sure that primary and secondary school students will like it as well. And that they gain better understanding of theoretical knowledge presented in an interesting and new way, which is really important. If it's interesting to them, it will keep them motivated for work. Okay. Okay, so they also emphasize that students also gain the development of science literacy through development of student research projects, because they had like a small research projects in the field exercise, and they think it's positive to develop a critical thinking and reasoning based on data collection and analysis. They also think that through this work, they develop a wide range of generic student competencies, like collaborative and teamwork and presenting data and so on. And they also think it's this kind of work is a good introduction to the basic scientific principles and popularization of science. They also, in a lower number, think that in this way, students develop sensitivity to environmental problems because they gain some data, and then they can see if there is some environmental problem on some certain spot of our environment. And they also think it's positive for recognizing the affinity for science among students. And they also think it's good for students because it develops students' confidence and self-esteem, because they contribute to science as they enter all their measurements into the global database. When we asked them, what do teachers gain from conducting this kind of activities? Most of them said that it's good for developing new competencies and wider knowledge, because teachers should also learn something new, maybe through preparing for these field activities and this kind of teaching. But also they think it's positive that through this kind of teaching, teachers develop cooperation and networking, including international cooperation and student exchange, because GLOBE program offers opportunities for school networking and working on mutual scientific interests. They also think that they, as teachers, could gain higher student motivation through these activities, and increased student interest. But also they find it very positive that on this globe site, there are numerous additional materials for teaching enrichment that they can use in their everyday teaching. When asked what does the school gain, so most of them said that, for example, presenting results of student measurements at the level of school, if once introduced at the school levels, the school would go to an affirmation in the local community and even beyond, and also that it benefits to the local community for monitoring the state of the environment. Because if they are doing continuous measurements with their students one day in their schools at one certain data collection site, they could provide for the local community long-term data of environmental data, which can be really useful and interesting to citizens. Another course we provide at our university is urban ecology course. It's an elective course at our department for the master students of environmental sciences. I am especially proud of this course because I co-developed it with my colleagues from the Faculty of Architecture. But you will see that we also include many other guest lecturers trying to make it as interdisciplinary as possible, as urban ecology is. Within this course, we hold interdisciplinary lectures, but also exhibitions of student projects. So our students and students from the Faculty of Architecture get a topic for their student project, and they work together on actually offering solutions how to improve our urban environment, our local quarters in the town, to get some environmental benefits, but also benefits for the local community. So students from the Faculty of Architecture, they develop, let's say, their part, providing schemes and illustrations and actually projections how this could look in the urban landscape. Whereas our biology students, environmental sciences students, they incorporate environmental elements into these projects and take care about all ecological, biological and geophysical and physicochemical issues that might appear within these project solutions. So we organize the exhibitions of these students' projects for 2-3 years in a row. We held it in the Zagreb Architects Association as a digital pop-up exhibition. It was each year it's more and more people getting there to see students' work, and we are very, very proud that we managed to integrate our courses and our students to show them that only integrative teaching is a way to get somewhere together and to cover one topic from different angles. On this course, we also have guest lectures by experts from other relevant fields. So for a few years in a row, we are hosting Dr. Ivana Logar from the Swiss Federal Institute for Water Management, TEAVAG. She is an environmental economist. And she is actually providing this aspect to our students. So explaining everything behind the ecosystem services and how to incorporate economy and social sciences into urban ecology. And we also have guest lecturers from the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Naval Architecture here in Zagreb, exactly experts from the laboratory for energy efficiency, who tell us more about the energy efficiency of buildings, of old buildings, of new buildings, and how can we integrate some biological solutions and concepts into increasing energy efficiency of our buildings and human systems. This is also very, very interesting to our students, and they really are grateful that we provide them this interdisciplinary view, as in their most of the teaching they gain at our faculties, at least within our traditional universities, is a strictly disciplinary approach. So it's mostly ex cathedra teaching with less activities, but strictly framed into individual topic. So they are really grateful that within this urban ecology course, they get different views, and they are also in the field collaborating with their colleagues from other faculty, and they really like it. What is really important, not only for primary and secondary school students, but also for our university students, to evaluate our work and to assess student reflections on what they did. So here and there during the course, we conduct the informal assessments. So we ask students how they liked this part of teaching, that part of teaching, and we continuously actually upgrade our course based on their comments from week to week. And then at the end, of course, we conduct the formal university assessment of the course, and we gain really high scores. Of course, students are always they always like to provide feedback on the amount and the quantity of work they have to do. So if there were some negative comments, it's like the course is really very interesting, but there is so much to do. But this is what we actually like, because only learning by doing, for me, is valid learning. So if we just stay here and provide theory about some concepts, I think it will disappear soon. But learning by doing and giving more tasks to our students to enable them to work efficiently and effectively within their teams, with us only moderating and tackling their curiosity, I think it's much more valuable. So I will be completely honest. I don't care if students say we work too much on this course. I'm just glad that at the end they are really happy, and they provide feedback that it was really, really interesting and that they learned a lot. Also, at the beginning of each of our meetings with our students, we give them this KWL table, where they put before teaching, they they write down what they want to know and what they already know about the topic. And at the end of our meeting, of our session, they list what they learned, and they give it back to us. So it is really also important for us to see, have we covered all their wishes and what they actually learned. This is how we do the assessment. And I think I'm already done. So I went through sustainable development overview, just a short overview. There is a much longer story about the whole history of sustainable development and education for sustainable development in our handbook. Then I covered some most interesting aspects of our handbook that might be interesting for you. And I provided 2 examples of how we integrate education for sustainable development into our university teaching. This was it. Thank you for your patience and attention.